Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our webinar series. Today with us is Sharon Koenig. Sharon is an author, speaker, and mother. Her spiritual search began as a way to find answers to overcome a difficult childhood that no successful relationship could heal. Sharon set aside her successful career as a fashion designer and manufacturer after her daughter was born and began to transform her gift for creative expression by becoming a change catalyst with a vision for a new inclusive spirituality. Before becoming an author, Sharon produced and developed motivational events and personal growth projects for the Latin American community featuring leaders and authors from various spiritual backgrounds. Many readers describe Sharon as a writer who can translate profound spiritual lessons into simple and practical terms. She has published 3 books. I'm not going to be able to pronounce these well, so I'll apologize. Los Ciclos de Alma, a number 1 bestseller on Amazon with 40 weeks in the top 100. And now in its 7th edition, Las 12 Promesas de Alma, which is from HarperCollins Espanol, and most recently, Desde Om hasta Amen, which means from Om to Amen, a spiritual journey. Sharon's memoir about her spiritual journey, and she's currently working on an English translation for that last book. Sharon loves gardening, music, traveling, reading, philosophy, and nature. She describes her goal as to reach and inspire as many people as I can with a vision of compassionate and inclusive spirituality, to share the journey for our authentic purpose together with peace of mind through a conscious and everlasting connection with our unconditionally loving God. Finally, Sharon's been an outstanding speaker at several of the conferences I've produced, and I love working with her. She's going to be speaking again at the next Publishing in Color Spiritual Writers Conference in Los Angeles at the University of California in March. So welcome, Sharon.
Well, thank you so much. And a big hug for everyone that is listening at this moment. Very honored to be a part of this community.
So Sharon, the webinar series that we've been having has been called Removing Roadblocks to Getting Published. And, we're not doing a formal presentation like, the other, some of the other presentations were. But can you tell us a little bit about what some of the major roadblocks were that you encountered when you first started looking to get published? And what did you do to overcome those?
I will say, Brian, that the worst roadblock was myself. I really, like you said, I started working with other authors. I was promoting other authors because every time I found an author that had an incredible voice and it was helping people, I wanted to promote that message for other ones. But at the beginning, I didn't think that my voice was important enough. I struggled with, but who am I? I mean, after meeting all these, bestseller authors, I said, who am I? Who am I? Why am I different? There's other people that are better than me. I would say that was my biggest roadblock. I felt arrogant only about thinking that I could write something. But then I had a friend that told me, I had a radio program for a couple of weeks, and I started writing in a blog in 2000. Brian, that was 2005, 6, at the beginning of the blog cycle. And I started writing a little bit of what I was talking on in the radio in Puerto Rico. So people started to respond in an incredible way. I didn't know I could write. And I don't consider myself an incredible writer, because the most important is not that you're a great writer, is that your message reaches people. I think this is really the most important thing, because another roadblock was the perfection, but I have never taken a course in writing. I don't even know how to write. I don't know if I'm doing this perfectly. And then perfection, I would say that striving for perfection is a problem, because we will never start if we want to wait until the right moment, Brian. You know what I'm saying here. So that was another thing. So what did I do? I just started compiling all these blogs that I was doing, and they looked like a book. And I used to talk a lot about nature and the seasons. And for me, spirituality, I mean, nature has like most of the answers. So I started putting them all together, and they started to look like a book. So that's how I started at the beginning. So another roadblock that I that was myself and other people is that they say, oh, I want to be first, when I meet somebody, they tell me, I want to be a writer. I'm like, so have you been writing? Well, no. Well, you need to start writing. You need to start, but I don't know how to write. I'm like, it's like breathing. It's like breathing. Just write. Just sit down and write. Because if you say, I don't know how to write, it's like saying, I don't know how to breathe. I don't know how to speak. And you have your voice. The perfection, the help from other people is going to come later. So one day, I had all these bunch of papers all together, and they looked like a really big mess. And I put it all together. When I finished that manuscript, somebody called me, because this is where magic happens. I mean, I'm a believer in God, of course. I always walk with him. I say, well, I'm going to do this. You help me with the miracles. Because they said luck happens when preparation meets opportunity. And this is what happened to me. I already finished that day, everything. I'm like, this looks like a book. And I didn't have an agent. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to I will probably have to publish it myself. You know, I was ready to publish it. I wasn't expecting it to be published in a big publisher or anything. So a friend of mine that was a publisher for another of the writers that I was helping before, she's from Barcelona, the day after, Brian, she calls me and she says, hey, I'm here. Her name is Giova. She's Italian. She said, I'm here in Miami. I'm going to meet to sign a contract with another writer there. Are you there? I'm like, yes, I am. And I said, you know what? I finished a manuscript. She says, no promises, you know, that's what, no promises. But you know what? Bring it. It's okay. No promises. But I really wanted to see her as a friend. So that's how it started.
That's just so amazing, isn't it? I mean, as they always say, God works in amazing ways, and miracles continue.
Exactly. And it's very funny because she took it, and I waited like 3 or 4 months. I never heard of it from her. And I'm like, I'm for sure they're not even considering me. And one day she calls me and she says, you know what? We are going to publish your book. We like it. We have to make a few, we have to fix it a little bit, of course. This is another roadblock I hear from writers. I don't want anybody touching my book. I don't want the publisher. I don't want any publisher getting into my message. And you know what? Well, in my case, they knew what they were doing. So they edited a few words that were, just to make it, in Spanish, there was a problem because we have Spain, we have Europe, and then we have Latin America, and we have the Caribbean, and we have United States. Sometimes to find a neutral language is important. So that's how we started. That's it.
Well, many of the roadblocks that you've mentioned are things that I've heard from several other writers. The imposter syndrome, you know, who am I to be a writer? You know, that's really broad from what I hear people telling me.
Well, that's my talk. That's my talk, and I will be talking about them. That, you know, that's what I spoke about in Chicago, and that is a spiritual problem. I always say that in this talk I'm going to talk about what I did, but instead of doing that, the imposter syndrome is about being. So this is what I'm going to be talking. Excellent.
So how about the other book deals, you know, that you were able to get afterwards? I'm sure that was a little bit of a different process. What was that like?
Well, it was challenging also because the first publisher was Ediciones Obelisco Barcelona, and they're amazing. I mean, they just published the 7th edition of the first book. And but the second book, I started writing it, and it was Christian. It was another genre, and I felt like I needed a different publisher, because sometimes when you're writing, you have to respect the publisher. Sometimes we go, another roadblock is that you want to publish with best, with the biggest publisher. And sometimes bigger is not better. I have to say that. Sometimes, like Ediciones Obelisco is not the biggest one, but they were the first to publish in Spanish, Paulo Coelho, The Alchemist. So you never know, this is how it started. So you just never know. They have few books and they're very specific. So the other one was Christian. So somebody called me from HarperCollins Espanol. They have a Nashville Christian division, and they wanted to see that the manuscript. So I decided to go with them because the theme was more Christian. The first one is more open to just a little bit more open in the way I speak. So yes, it was a completely different genre, I will say. And then the last one is a memoir. So I continue with the same with HarperCollins Espanol. A memoir is something I have never done before, and it was really challenging. If you ask me about the translation right now, it's so challenging because a memoir is not a how-to book. It's yourself, so it's not that easy. And that's how it happened with HarperCollins Espanol. They have those two last books.
So basically, the success of your first book caused people to call you, to request a second book.
Yes, actually, it was a distributor, and I was, he called me up. He says, "Oh, Sharon, where's your next book? We're waiting for it." And I was going on and on with the second book. I in the middle of the book changed. I said, "I'm struggling with the first publisher and the second one. I don't know what to do. This book sounds more Christian, and I would like to be more, maybe go into the Christian genre." And he said, "Well, I know a lot of publishers." I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah." But I didn't just pay attention. And somebody called me from HarperCollins Espanol, and they said, "Oh, we heard you're looking, for maybe a publisher for your next book." And when I saw HarperCollins, I'm like, whoa! I was so excited because one of my dreams was HarperCollins. I mean, I have a picture in New York in front of HarperCollins building a long time ago. So you have to dream, and then things will happen. You just continue working. I was what I was doing, Brian, before I got that call from HarperCollins. I was doing a Lent for free, working every day, writing Lent for 40 days in my website. I have thousands of people for different parts. I wasn't getting paid for that. Sometimes you just have to go out there and give, and things will start moving around. I can't tell you that this is this strategy has any scientific proof, but it does work.
No, absolutely. I totally agree. So you're one of the busiest folks that I know. You travel a lot, you speak a lot, you go out and meet with people, book signings, everything. Obviously, you have many opportunities to choose from. How do you make choices like that? What types of commitments do you prioritize, and why?
Oh, well, that's a hard one. I will say I like projects where I can feel that I'm making a difference. Sometimes I call it obedience. In Christian language, obedience is doing something that is a calling, or something you need to do that you might not want to do it, or that it might be dangerous sometimes. Like I have been invited to. I was like in the middle of Venezuela a couple of years ago when the whole thing started. We were with a group of people that were inspiring other people. I've been in Argentina. I've been in Colombia. So I always believe that when a door opens, I listen. And my question is, God, you want me to go? The doors are open. And of course, I don't endanger myself crazy. But if I can make a difference, you'll see me there.
Well, we're sure glad to have you involved in Writing for Your Life and Publishing in Color, because I think you're really making a difference with us. So thank you for that. So you're also very active on social media. What are your thoughts on how you approach social media and kind of what your strategy is for that?
Well, Brian, I started in 2009, I think, is where I started like Facebook and all the media. I see the media is changing. I have a lot of people in Facebook from mostly Latin America. My number one readers are Mexico, Argentina, Colombia, in Spanish I'm talking, right? And I see now that everything is moving to Instagram. So I started doing Instagram a little late, but it's catching up. It's immediate, it's fresh. I don't see people, I used to write like long blogs every day. And I'm not the only writer doing this, because other writers have stopped like blogging the long blogs, which is good for practice, I have to tell you, as a writer. But right now it's Instagram, and I do answer a lot of people. I do try to go there daily and answer, because there's a lot of people alone. There's a lot of loneliness, and people are hurting in different parts of the world. And sometimes the only person that they have on the other side is an author that might just click, thank you very much, a like. You can make such a difference by just a little, well, I'm very sorry that happened to you. And I don't do this a lot because I can't, but sometimes when I hear someone, I don't know, they lost a child or something, I call these people. I don't know, I don't care where they are. They're gonna, sometimes it happens, the social media could be an incredible thing to connect with your readers and also to hear feedback. Sometimes when I had a moment where my message, I was trying to hone my message, and it sounded a little bit intolerant. My readers told me, hey, what happened? So you have to listen to your readers, and it's not that you're not going to be yourself, but sometimes a message, the voice, the tone that you give a message can make all the difference.
So quite a few of our listeners are relatively new spiritual writers. What kind of advice do you have for people that are earlier in their career?
Spirituality, well, the first part will be, like you said, work with your spirituality, work with your, connect to God, do prayer. I always believe that if you're a spiritual writer, you are a channel, you are an instrument of something bigger than you. And I will say, invite that presence of God in your life, and do your spiritual work in order for you to be able to give it to others as well. And you need an observation, work on your forgiveness on issues that you have that might get in the way of your writing, which why I talk more about that when I give the talk in Publishing in Color. I go a little bit deeper in that. So that's my invitation. Hone your message little by little. You're going to change. I have to tell you, change, don't be afraid of change, because it's growth. I read my book right now again, and it's 99% perfect, but there's a different tone, different ways I speak to now. So just grow, live, experience, observe, read, learn about your history, especially if you're underrepresented. You want to be a representation, and you want to learn your history, learn the roadblocks of everyone else so you can help them also.
Thank you. So are there any new book projects that you can tell us about?
Well, translation.
Yes, how is that going?
Oh, well, thank you very much. No, it's challenging. It's challenging, but I'm working on it. And I want to translate because some of the, especially the first book, it's a proven transformational book. I need to get it in English, and I do have a manuscript that I submitted, and I'm waiting. And also in my mind, I have like a lot of other ideas. I like poetry. You know, I would love to start working with poetry and children's book. I mean, as a writer, you can grow. I mean, there's so many things you can do.
So stepping back a little bit, you've made the transition from a business entrepreneur to an author. And can you tell us a little bit about that? I mean, there may be other people who would be interested in doing something similar to that. How did that work for you, and what do you suggest for others?
Well, the transition from business, I was a manufacturer, to becoming more of a somebody more into transformation and spirituality. Even before I was writing, it came out of my daughter's birth when I decided to step back. It was more organic. I do business also as right now, and I will say there's so many things that you can do as a writer. I mean, I do business, I don't know, real estate and other things that I do on my own. But as a writer, right now, you don't need to be a writer only to have an income. You can be, I wrote it here, you could be a collaborator in media. You could be, you can open an institute. You could be an activist. You can work as a mentor. You could be content producer, speaker, politician. You can work as in ministry. There's so many things that you can do, and I think I will suggest everybody to explore what is it that they have as a gift. And sometimes there are doors that are going to open for you that are going to be income producing. Some others don't, but you need to make a balance. I don't recommend everyone to stop writing and leave everything and just don't pay the bills. You need to have a balance, and you will know when the time is to do a transition to either way.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I think we all have to be pretty practical on these things.
Yes.
So as we've been talking about, the Publishing in Color conference series is something that you're going to be speaking again at in Los Angeles. But you also gave one of the keynotes at the Chicago Publishing in Color conference that we had in this past November. Can you just talk a little bit about what your experience was there?
Brian, participating in that conference has been one of the most beautiful experiences I have had. I have to be really honest with you. Being together with the African American community and other communities, Hispanics and just underrepresented people that want to be a voice. Meeting them was beautiful. Listening to their dreams, being you know, a lot of people need, we need, I tell you, because I need it all the time. We need just a little validation. Yes, you can do this. You know, sometimes that's all you need. But on top of it, I was really impressed because I wasn't expecting to see like all the key people from the industry, publishers that you only dream of talking to, that you need an agent, that is so difficult and so hard. And when you go to a conference like this, you have the opportunity, you know, to probably sit with them, or in my case, I did my elevator pitch. I had the opportunity. So it was an amazing thing. Also listening to history, like Dominic Gillard, I mean, listening to him talking about the history of incarceration. You need to listen to people that are like you. You know, like Latinos. I have I have my own story, and I want to hear people that are like me. So it was beautiful. I really suggest anyone that has the dream of writing to be able to participate, especially in a conference where it's dedicated to you, to the one that is underrepresented.
Yeah, I think that's consistent with, you know, the other feedback that I've gotten from other attendees. They've just really appreciated that community of people who, you know, have been coming to these conferences. So I'm anxious for that to continue and to grow. So if there's anyone who would like to ask any questions, we have a Q&A function on the webinar. So on your screen, if you see a Q&A button, you can feel free to click on that and type in any questions, and we'll get those answered for you. Sharon, do you want to talk any more about Los Angeles? What are you going to be talking about there?
Yes, the talk is finding your voice, finding your purpose, and you were talking about the imposter syndrome. And the imposter syndrome is sometimes we don't know who we are. To be authentic, to find that real voice, that it has to do a lot with fear. And other talks, they talk about how to do, what is it that you need to do. In my case, I want to share what you need, how you need to be. It's about being, about knowing yourself. And I also share, just personal secrets that I do to connect with that muse, and how to invite it and to become an instrument of the voice that you are going to be sharing with other people.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I try to achieve with these conferences, is have a mix of, kind of inspiration and spirituality along with practicality, and both sides of the equation, so to speak, in that, there's a lot of, turn the crank, how-to kinds of things, as you said, that are necessary.
Important.
Particularly, for the people in the publishing industry to speak to that. But I think, from an author's perspective, you're a role model. You're someone who's gotten published, who's made it, who's done well. And I think, having your experience to be able to articulate that to people is extremely important.
Of course. And it's also important to listen to people from the industry. What is it that they're looking for? What is it that the roadblocks that they find with the writers? For me, it was really amazing to be on both sides, learning from them too, because you have like a group of different people speaking, not only authors, you have people from the industry. And that is really important. I always say, people say, oh, I want to write. First thing you need to do, go to a conference. I did myself when I started, and I continue to do it. I continue to learn my trade, and I have someone to help me with my writing, and especially now with English, which is not my first. Now I have to learn English again when you write, because it's different. It's a different mode. So yes, you need help from other editors and people that can look at your writing and say, hey, you're repetitive here, and or you can. I mean, you need to be open to feedback, and don't get discouraged by the feedback, because sometimes, I remember the first time I took a book to one of the conference, it was not a good feedback. I mean, it was a good feedback, but I was expecting to say, oh, this is wonderful, you're going to be the next, I don't know, J.K. Rowling's, and hey, I needed to hear that I needed to write in a different way, that there were certain things that I needed to fix. So don't be discouraged by that, I will say.
So Sharon, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you spending time with us, and I'm really looking forward to working with you again at the Publishing in Color Conference in Los Angeles. Our next webinar in this series will be tomorrow, January 31st at 11 a.m. Eastern with Amy Julia Becker. So please join us then. And Sharon, thank you again. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And thanks everyone for joining us. We'll catch you next time.